Hello, everyone, and welcome to WrestleSphere. I've just not long wrapped up an amazing interview with Brody King, covering all manner of different kind of subjects. He goes into what he thinks of each member of the House of Black. We go through some pop culture references. We talk about being the traditional big man versus the new big guy. We go into a little bit of music chat as well. Of course, he's the lead vocalist for his band God's Hate. So I really hope you enjoy the interview. Let us know in the comments what's your favorite Brody King moment so far, and let us know what you think of the interview as well. Hope you enjoy this one as much as I did talking to the guy himself. Cool. I'll give you the proper introduction then. Say, I'm joined today by AW Star, House of Black member, lead vocalist of God's Hate, and the one and only Brody King. How are you doing, sir?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm really good, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. Yeah, looking forward to this one. So, first things first, I really wanted to ask you: we're a couple of weeks removed from Wrestle Dream and your match against Darby, and just kind of wanted to ask you, now that we are a couple of weeks back, what's that process like? And do you, like, do you review the match? Like, what happens after you've done it? Do you look back and then think, what can I do better? What did I do well? What does that look like for you?
Well, first I use a lot of ice and ibuprofen. uh, yeah, I mean, like watching the match back and just kind of like taking it in the for what it was to other people is always cool. Like, obviously when you're in the moment and like you're in that atmosphere, it's much different than watching it back and like you maybe think that things translate differently, but it's always nice to know that like things kind of went the way that you wanted it to and that the crowd reacted the way that you wanted it to. And yeah, I mean, across the board, I'm really proud of that match, and I'm really um you know of course the outcome is not always what you want, but sometimes that doesn't matter, you know what I mean? I think that I uh proved that I can be, a singles competitor once again, when the time comes. And if there's an opportunity to do that, I will always jump at it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned there about the singles competitor. There was a lot of talk on social media about how excited people were to see you in a singles match on a pay-per-view. What do you have a preference these days in terms of single or tag team? You kind of hinted at it there a little bit, but do you kind of prefer one over the other?
I mean, I feel like you always get this certain like reassurance and confidence from really knocking it out of the park in a singles match, because it's just you and the other guy. And a lot of the stuff, like your ideas and what you bring to the table, like the way that pays off, if it does pay off, then it's huge. You never know, like in a tag match or in a trios match, like who the fans are like really connecting with. But to do it yourself is always very rewarding. That's not to say I don't love tag team and trios wrestling, because that is a whole different art form in its own. Having to mesh all these different styles and different personalities is always very hard. And I think that House of Black has always been top notch at that. Whether it be me and Malachi or me and Buddy or all three of us together or Malachi and Buddy, like I feel like we all just kind of know what page each other is on, and we all know how to balance each other out, and we all have very different styles, and I think they mesh very well.
I mean, you received very like high praise from one Dave Meltzer. Is he just one guy's opinion, or do you actually kind of take any kind of stock from those sites and those reviews and things like that?
I mean, it's easy for people to say like, "Oh, they're not a wrestler, so they don't know what they're talking about," type thing. But I mean, I feel like across the board, you have to take everybody's opinion, good and bad, for what it is. You can find little things in each one to critique yourself with. And, Meltzer loves modern wrestling. I mean, he loves wrestling in general. He's a wrestling historian.
Mhm.
So, of course it's cool when you get like a good score from him, but it's not like the end all be all, because you're going to have the opposite end of the spectrum, telling you that it was the worst match they'd ever seen. So it's like, you take the good with the bad, but there's definitely pieces of every review that you can, use to better yourself in the future.
Absolutely. And I just want to ask you about your like the House of Black in particular. Is like if I were to give you one word for each of them, so we'll start with Malachi Black. One word that would describe Malachi to start with.
Meticulous.
And Buddy.
Reliable, loyal.
Julia.
Aura. I hate that word right now, but like that kind of I feel like that is her.
Fair enough. And Brody King.
Violent.
Nice. I mean, it's picking up on Julia. Obviously, you said Aura there. Like she's kind of been under the tutelage of the House of Black for a little while now. What have you made personally working with her, like about her progression into who she is today?
I'm sorry. What was your question?
Since you've been working with Julia, like what's been what you know, like what are your thoughts on her now, like a couple of years down the line working with her and her progression and like who she is now compared to how she was before she came into the House of Black?
Oh, I think you see a completely different performer in general. Like I think you've seen someone come out of their shell completely and like mature into the performer that they are today. And like I don't think anybody would have ever thought that the bubbly little cheerleader would have been this like, you know, gothic powerhouse, like, coming in with fire and the crazy hat and all that stuff. Like it's just like it's night and day, like of what she started with and what she is now. And I think that, you know, whether that whether she's the same Julia her entire career or like that changes, like I think it shows range and I think it shows, what she can evolve into as a competitor and as a entertainer.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, where do you think the future, like, what do you think the future could hold for her if she goes as far as she possibly can?
I mean, she's 22 years old. I think that the future is literally endless for her. Like she's athletic. She has the full package of what you would want in a professional wrestler in a, you know, even if she wanted to translate that to film or TV, like she's got it all.
I personally I was thinking when I was doing my research before this, I don't think I've ever seen a stable or a group ever have as much speculation week on week on social media, thinking where they're going to go, what's the next step. Do you guys ever like just sit and talk about it and laugh about it, or like what's does it ever get through to you?
Oh, yeah, I think it's like probably a weekly discussion of like what is going on this week, that type of thing. It's always very funny what people are speculating on, but it's always nice to be part of the conversation and have people excited about what you're going to do next.
Absolutely. I mean, the other side of things I wanted to ask you about was about the music in particular that for yourself and being involved in that hardcore scene. There's quite a few wrestlers who have crossed over and have one foot in music and one foot in wrestling. What do you think it is that attracts people to those two areas or those two fields, and why do they cross over so much?
I mean, especially with extreme music, I feel like there's a lot of similarities, like the physicality, the energy, the sense of danger. Like it all kind of translates very much the same. Uh, at least with hardcore punk, like extreme metal music, like I feel like you can really get like the spectacle, you can get the feeling that you get from seeing like, Slayer playing or,
Mm.
God Save playing. You could see that in a professional wrestling, specifically AEW product. Like, when you see Hangman giving a whatever like crazy cage match with Swerve, like
Yeah,
them slamming each other on cinder blocks, like that's going to make you feel uncomfortable, but it's going to make you feel excited and like you want to see more. Like, and I feel like that's very similar with extreme music. At first you're like taken back, like, whoa, are they supposed to be doing this? And then like, and then you're kind of like intoxicated by it and you're addicted to it. And, that's what drew me into wrestling. And that's what drew me into, hardcore music and metal and punk music. It was like that sense of danger and like, uh, you know, one time Ethan Page came to a God State show and he is very much different from, our demographic. And this, I think this was his first experience in seeing anything like that. And at the end of the day, he said, man, it's like it's a safe space to do very unsafe things. And like that's kind of where I thrive in my life.
Yeah, well, that could be something. That's a t-shirt idea in the future. Is there any one within those kind of genres that you mentioned, whether it be hardcore or heavy metal or etc., that you think would have made a great wrestler in another life? Like, is there another sort of like band or a member of a band that could make that crossover into wrestling?
I mean, there's so many, like there's so many. I mean, I think Henry Rollins like comes to mind like right away, like the intensity, the like physicality, like he just exudes like confidence, and he does these spoken words that are basically professional wrestling promos. Like
Mhm.
it, he I think would have made a great professional wrestler. I think that, the list could go on and on and on. There's been many of my friends that I've tried to convince to become wrestlers. And then, at first they were just like, nah. And then now they see where I'm at now. They're like, damn, I should have done it with you. I'm like, yeah. Like, cause it's like, you see all these guys that are like, especially in hardcore, like, they are very, uh, serious about being in the gym, being in good shape. And then like, also they have this like, confidence to get on the stage, and like
Mhm.
this projection of like their thoughts and feelings and their voices, and everything is just like you're basically doing it all except for wrestling.
I thought you were going to say the word aura again there for a second.
No way. I said it once. I hate that I said it the first time.
What's on the playlist right now?
Oh, Frozen soundtrack. It depends on if I'm taking my kids to school
Yeah.
or if I'm by myself. No, but soundtrack right now. Chapel Roan. Uh, Gaga is always usually in the rotation. Um, the newest Twitching Tongues Twitch Fit record is incredible. I think that's dropping. Don't hold me to this, but I think that's dropping this week on
Okay.
Spotify. So it's their volume 2 of Misfit covers, and it's very good. Um, what else? Been listening to a lot of the Gridiron record again that came out last year or the year before. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Uh, Go check out the Gridiron record. Um, Never Ending Game, Criminal Instincts. I very much differ between like extreme pop music and then extreme hardcore and metal music.
No, it's good to have
So
that range. It's cool.
yeah.
I mean, I did have a question down, which is like what might surprise people to know that you're listening to. But when you open with Frozen soundtrack, then like I think you've answered that one pretty much straight out the gate.
Oh, I know every word. And it's like I took my kids to see The Nightmare Before Christmas in the theater yesterday, and like I know every word to that. It's like any Disney movie. I'm a sucker for a catchy song. Like
Yeah.
these songs in like the Disney zombie movies and Descendants and all that stuff. Like they're good. They're bangers, and they got good hooks, and they'll suck you in.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, does that mean we're going to get a God's Hate like cover of Disney songs at some point?
God, no, no, no way.
Fair enough. Um, like looking forward to like down the road. If you were to leave wrestling, say today or tomorrow, what would be the one moment or thing that you would be like, I'm so proud of that, and that's the one moment I should be defined by?
That's a tough question. Um, I think the moment that I was like proudest of, I would say there's probably two in AEW specifically. One was the coffin match with Darby, because that was like my first, like, I guess, breakout moment, like my first push into like a singles direction. Um, and I remember this is gonna sound really funny. I remember being just covered in blood, laying inside of the coffin while it was closed, and it was just like thinking to myself, like, that was pretty good. Like, and like, so that was like my first like stamp seal of approval from like kind of everybody across the board that like, okay, this guy's good where he's at. And the other one I think would be when we won the trios titles against the Elite. Um, we, my dad and my son were like front row. My best friend Colin was there too, and it was just like, at the end, Julia went and grabbed my son and brought him in the ring, and like that was just a really special moment for me, for Malachi, for Buddy, for my family. It was just like, you know, we made it to the top. That was pretty cool.
I love the fact that there's no other industry where you could say you were lying in a coffin covered in blood, thinking like this, I've done it, I've made it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah.
Inside the ring, what aspirations have you still got left? Like, what is it you want to accomplish? Like inside the ring.
Oh, so much. I would love to go back to New Japan, in Japan specifically, and do some matches there.
Hmm.
Uh, I would love to do a trios match with the House of Black in Japan. I think that would be really amazing. I don't really like, of course, like having a title is cool because it just is another accomplishment under your belt, but like
Hmm.
that's never been my like ultimate goal in wrestling. Obviously, like with titles comes more money or more validation to certain people, but I look forward most to wrestling different people and pushing myself in different directions. And like, this program with Darby kind of came out of left field when he made that open challenge, and like I feel like I was able to express myself in a different way than I have been the last couple of years with House of Black. Like you got to see a little bit more behind the curtain, and like there was a little bit more personal life of Brody King, and like, you know, even kind of throwing it back to like coming out with like the camo jacket and the camo ski mask. Like that's like more authentically me than it is House of Black, but like it all is kind of the same.
Hmm.
Um, but it's more of that. It's just more expressing myself, being able to be in the ring with people that I have always looked up to. Like I would love to wrestle Samoa Joe. Like that's always like name one person in AEW. It's like that's it. Like
Yeah.
he was someone that I watched early on in my like training career, and like ever since, like he's just been, one of my top favorite wrestlers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just stepping in the ring with people that I haven't, and going different places and having them experience what my brand of wrestling is. That's what my goals are. Like it's not really like, oh, I want to be AEW heavyweight champion. It's like, yeah, that would be awesome. That would be
Yeah.
really awesome someday. But that's not like, I'm not going to hang my hat on that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things I think when I've watched your matches is like that almost redefinition of what the big guy is, because there's that, I guess, for years and decades like wrestling was all big guys, and then it kind of going, oh, now they're the lumbering guys. And but like how does it feel to be that kind of like almost new age of big guy, and changing that definition?
uh, yeah, I feel like from day one, that was always my goal. You know, Sometimes to my disadvantage, I trained heavily in lucha libre as well. My school is very like, you learn kind of every style of wrestling from
Hmm.
Japanese, American, lucha libre, and I was good at lucha. And like, you know you can go watch early matches, and I do a lot of it. Top rope dives, and rope stuff, and it there's a point where it doesn't translate as well, or it's just hurting myself more than anybody, because a big man doing that is not as easy. So it's like pulling that stuff out every once in a while is fun. But yeah, I never wanted to be the lumbering big guy. Like I always said, like I'll never do a choke slam, because that's like the definitive big man move. Which
Cliche,
I've
yeah.
done it. I've done it like catching a person on a dive onto the apron, but like middle of the ring, like choke slam, it's just I don't know. That's like, I feel like that's when you're just like, okay, I'm big man wrestler now. Don't get me wrong, some people do it awesome and it looks really cool, but it's not for me.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I like pushing the boundaries, and I think that I've meshed well the like violent big man with like that can move and have athleticism. Like I always just try to think of different ways to hurt people, like, and also like display my athleticism, like crossbody into the barricade, or like the cannonball, like stuff like that is, very much my wheelhouse.
Yeah. You've got what seems to be a lot of different things to pull from because like looking at your tattoos, there's like Frankenstein. I can see in the background there you've got Juggernaut, Godzilla, Galactus, etc. Do you pull from like pop culture and things that interesting? Like what is it you look for and go, I'm gonna use a bit of that, or like maybe I can introduce this. Like what's that process for you in terms of what you like as your interest in bringing it into you as a wrestler?
Oh, it's everything from comic books to movies to music. I would say that wrestling is maybe the last source of inspiration for me. Obviously, like I pull from the past of like different wrestlers, but my character, which is really just me, is just like, as a kid, I was obsessed with comic books, tattoo magazines, and music. And like that really hasn't changed to this day. It's like, I collect toys and comics and records and tattoos, obviously. And like my wife always says, like, oh, what do you think your like 12-year-old self would think of you now? I was like, I think I'm pretty damn cool. Like I pretty much turned exactly into what I wanted to be.
No, that's cool. I mean, you mentioned Gaga, and it'd be remiss of me not to ask, have you seen Joker 2 and what were your thoughts?
I haven't seen Joker 2 yet. And it's funny because I've seen so much hate for it that it almost seems like a meme at this point. And
Mm.
I'm like, there's like no way that it could be that bad because of the have you seen it?
I've seen it, yeah.
Is it that bad?
It's not as, I mean, let's face it, we live in a day where social media is like, whatever you hear on social media, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt because it's just the loudest people who shout, like, and that's not what it is. Like, it's not as good as the first one, and
Right.
it's an acquired taste, but it's not that bad. Like, it's not.
And I've seen like some people deep diving into it and like their fan theories and like stuff like that. I think is cool. And something
Mhm.
that is that subjective of like they either love it or hate it. I kind of love stuff like that because I mean that's kind of the world I live in. There's brands of wrestling that people love and hate. There's brands of music that people love and hate. And
Mhm.
like it could be objectively good in that genre, and then like someone else is like, "Oh, that's not music." You're like, "Okay."
Mhm.
So I'm definitely gonna watch it. I'm definitely gonna give it a try. I think Lady Gaga is a great actress. I think that Joaquin Phoenix is a great actor. So
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's like with all comic book films, and at its core, I guess it is because of who it's based on. But like sometimes people aren't going to enjoy that comic, and then they'll go read a different strand of Spider-Man or a different strand of Batman. There's something for everyone, so it's not too difficult to find something to love in it, really. But if you were talk about comic book characters, who would you describe yourself as most like in terms of which comic book character are you most like?
probably the Punisher. I mean, it's like I've always like leaned more towards the anti-hero
Mm.
characters where they're like, they kind of go in between. They are technically good guys, like they're doing good things, but they also might kill the bad guys,
Yeah,
which, you know, isn't always like, a Captain America thing all the time. I mean, Cap does get there, but
yeah.
there's times where like, people have like the hard stance of like, oh, the hero can't kill, but it's like, why not? Or
Mm.
like, people. I think Frank Castle as a character is interesting in the fact where he like waits. He'll wait for something bad to happen just so that he can then go rectify it. And it's like you
Yeah,
could have stopped it before, but like that's not what he does. He doesn't get involved until you know shit hits the fan.
yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of myself as well. Like I do get involved a little bit before shit hits the fan, but once I'm involved, it's full force.
Hmm. Um, I know you've got two kids, and I guess at this time of year, there's a lot of holidays coming up. Which one of the holidays is your favorite? Halloween, Thanksgiving, or Christmas?
It's definitely Halloween. Like we go big on Halloween. We decorate. Like we've already done multiple costume party things. We watch Halloween. Like we watch Halloween movies every night, and we my daughter always says, "Are we gonna have a Halloween party tonight?" And that literally just means like watching a Halloween movie and like eating some candy and hanging out. But yeah, it's like we go big on Halloween. Christmas is also very up there, which is funny because people try to be like, "Oh, why do you like Christmas if you don't, believe in God?" It's like that's not what it's about. It's about family and like friendship and all that stuff. Like, I Christmas is really special in our house. And, Thanksgiving as well, but I would say like Halloween, Christmas, Thanksgiving if I were to rate it.
So for you then, Nightmare Before Christmas, Halloween or Christmas film?
I mean, it's a Halloween movie. It's
Okay.
100% a Halloween movie. Like I understand, like I like the representation around Christmas time, but Jack goes from being the Pumpkin King to stealing Christmas, and then realizing that that wasn't his path at the end of it, and then he goes back to being a better version of himself. So it's a Halloween movie.
Yeah, I think my sister, who's a massive fan, she would say it's both. It's an all year round movie. It's fine. You can watch it
It,
whenever.
it really is, yeah. Except I have to limit it in my house because my kids will watch it every single day if I let them.
Well, there's worse films. They could be addicted to like
There
Paw
is
Patrol or
worse
something.
films.
Fair enough. And the last question, to leave on outside the ring, how do you hope people will think of you, even and now and into the future? Like, when people think of you, what do you hope they think?
Out of the ring, I hope that people just think that I am a good person. That like when they've met me, that I've been kind to them, or I've met their expectation of whatever they were thinking. Uh, which is maybe very different than what they are thinking because I know that on screen I'm a very uh intimidating violent person, which is very much what I'm not if you were to interact with me like as a fan. But yeah, like outside of the ring, I just be a nice guy,
Yeah, I
be
mean,
like and just be a nice person in general. On As my character or in my legacy as far as entertainment, I would love to be up there with like some of the best big men in wrestling of all time. God's Hate has solidified itself as a very uh, important band in modern hardcore, and I think that continuing that is important to me and not watering down our legacy in that sense. So like I said, like those things don't really matter to me at the end of the day as much as like my personal life. Like if I can raise my kids well, if I can treat my family well, and like you know if a fan comes up to me in the grocery store, they have a good interaction. Like that's what matters more to me.
absolutely. Well, I can say you've more than met my expectations of what I was hoping for. So thank you so much for your time today, and I hope you have the rest of your day is great, and keep smashing it in the ring as well.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that.